because the last one was really terrible. I have with me tonight Reasony, who is the LMS expert.
No, she's coming back. It just comes fine.
We have with me the LMS expert, Reasony, who so rudely interrupted me because he's a very nice fellow. He's a very rude person. He's going to talk to us a little bit later tonight about the Yoi Flash Wolves because there has been that big controversy on Reddit. I also have with me Emily Rand, who is a Brazilian League of Legends expert. The Brazilian League of Legends playoffs for their scene has just started, and Emily is going to talk to us a little bit about who we might see from Brazil at the wildcard tournament for MSI qualification. Then we will talk a little bit later to Razzleplasm about LPL and LSPL. His playoffs are starting tonight. Okay, and Demacia Cup, other Chinese things, because I don't know, all these great obscure regions, and we'll probably save TSM to the very last because that's what everyone cares about, so we want to make you listen to the rest of our show. First, we're going to be talking about Brazilian League of Legends, because if you go from a scale to no one cares to... No, just kidding, Emily.
I'm used to it. It's all good.
But we are very excited to talk about Brazil tonight because, like I said, their playoffs did start this weekend, and we have the quarterfinals. CNB versus Kaboom Black and Pain versus Dexterity. You told me the most exciting set of this to watch that you would recommend to people is going to be the first game of CNB versus Kaboom Black. Could you tell me a little bit about what makes this game particularly special to you? I did watch this game, so I have a couple follow-up questions, but let's start off with that.
All good. This game isn't particularly special to me, but however, the first set of Pain Dexterity was really stompy. So if you just want to see Pain kind of like toy with their opponents and Lecco like dominating people on top lane Hecarim, then, you know, Pain Dexterity is for you. Or if you're like a huge Pain fan, I think the biggest thing coming out of that set is that Pain didn't really show their hand in anything, so they haven't really had any sort of like strategic identity over the course of the split. And they've tried out a bunch of different stuff, and their set with Dexterity showed absolutely nothing in terms of what they would be able to do, so they're kind of just this like huge question mark right now strategically. But they looked really good on the new patch, especially their jungler. So the reason why I recommended CMB Kaboom Black is because it was kind of the better, it was the closer of the two sets.
I don't care about close things, Emily. You should know that by now.
Well, then maybe I should have just
I enjoy, you know, when an opponent is just so overwhelmingly powerful that they don't even have to have strategy to succeed. That's why I'm an OMG fan. Like, people know that by now.
When Pain Gaming is because they've looked really bad at other times during this year. CNB Kaboom Black, so it was kind of hyped up as this matchup between a team that is very usually really a lot tighter, and it's hard to show in that set, but they're usually a lot tighter in terms of managing their early lead and then controlling the mid game, so kind of making the other team come to them through usually slightly like smarter rotations and warding. And then Kaboom Black is a team that either executes their game plan really well or they get stomped. Like, they either do really well or they do really poorly. But I think these games showed off what they are really good at, which is typically controlling things within a team fight. So basically every time CNB kind of tried to engage on them, they would counter-initiate fairly well, aside from like one team fight I'm thinking of mid. But I thought they chained their CC pretty well. Skybart showed a lot of proficiency on the champion that wasn't Jax and Aurelia. And they also, I thought their jungler looked a lot better than he has. Their jungler Danagorn seems, again, like really comfortable in the new patch, as opposed to CNB's jungler Napon looked a little bit less so.
So for people who didn't watch the game, Napon played Vi, and CNB's jungler played Sejuani, which is going to be a jungler that's a bit more powerful on the 5.5 patch, right? Because of the tank jungle items. So do you think that this has always been something that you kind of suspected of his style, or is this just he hadn't really shown anything that impressive as a jungler, and then suddenly he comes into his own as a tank jungler?
I think it just suits his playstyle a little bit more. Danagorn is the Kaboom Black as a team, actually, like one of their best strengths and then like worst opportunities, I guess. They typically have a very weak early game, but their mid game is very good because they're a very defensive team. Like sometimes too defensive, to be quite honest. But Danagorn's jungle style is very much like that. Like he's very kind of a defensive like camper. So I feel like the new patch suits him a lot better, and I also thought putting Danagorn on a tank jungler, and I don't know if they're always going to do this, but I think it was actually really good for Skybart because he hasn't shown a huge proficiency in playing like top lane tanks. So if they can have him carry, and then I thought Danagorn's positioning for the most part on Sejuani in teamfights was actually really good, allowing their damage dealers to actually get forward, and they changed the CC pretty well between him and then their support Espeon on Annie. So I liked it for the team as a whole. I'm not really sure, like Napon is typically more of an aggressive jungler than what he showed. He's usually really mobile, so Vi should have been a pretty good pick for him, but he just didn't look as comfortable, I guess.
You'll have to excuse the overlay for a second. Apparently, Reasony doesn't like Brazil.
It's okay.
Rage quit from the show. It's like, I'm done with this.
I'll take it.
So it's interesting that you mentioned their jungler. Okay, we got him. He likes junglers. It's interesting that you mentioned his jungler, that they usually have a much controlled, more proactive early game on CNB, because I did see kind of, they had the early successful ganks and they picked up like the 3 kills initially, but then it was actually the teleport play, and this isn't the first time I've seen Skybart kind of play a pivotal role in Kaboom Black games, in all 3 total Kaboom Black games that I've seen in my life. So I was kind of wondering if it was typical of them to sort of play around this teleport strategy because they thought maybe their top laner has in the past played these carries. Does he typically get these lane advantages? It sounds like he doesn't, from what you're saying, is that he's been kind of meh.
It's not even that he's been meh, it's like I've been hypercritical of him because his champion pool was so specific, like literally Jax and Aurelia, in the very beginning of the season, that I feel like it somewhat hurt their pick and ban phase in terms of what they could do, how flexible they could be, and then also he was kind of targeted a bit by opponents as this, I don't even know if it was a weak link, because I want to say he's the youngest on the team, if I remember correctly. But he gets camped a lot. So he typically, I feel like their overall style in terms of recognizing when they can fight in the mid game, it works well with him making teleport plays, even if he does fall behind in lane. The difference in these games, I thought, like the first one you saw and then the second one as well, I thought he fell behind technically in both games. The second game he actually gave up First Blood. But I feel like he did a really good job of recognizing when he had the kill pressure in his lane or when he had the kill pressure on Ioshi in general. So he was able to get back in it by solo killing him twice, once in each game. So on 80 Fizz. So Triforce Fizz. He's never going to go away from those Triforce champions.
How does everyone feel about the Triforce Fizz? Because this isn't the first time we've seen it, right? We've seen it a little bit in Europe. We've seen it in China. How does everyone feel about this like new 80 carry Fizz that's come out the last couple weeks?
I like it. It's definitely like a decent counter pick and I think that's where it comes down to is that it's just simply a counter pick, like because you can really pick a lot of things into top lane now, mostly surrounding Maokai. If you get a Maokai pick, you are free to jumping out there if you're purple side. Like honestly, you can go a lot of routes, especially. Oh, okay, that's going a little off topic, but especially what you saw, like you see Vladimir picks, you just like anything that comes out, because honestly, you can counter the lane and hopefully look towards team fighting, and that's what like, or just like what Triforce Fizz does is just like it looks to split against him, so that's completely fine. So I like it.
But is it good? Because you said that Kaboom Black likes to team fight. So,
All right,
how do you team fight with Triforce Fizz?
I guess you don't. Like,
That's
Maybe.
too easy an answer. I mean, you could
Yeah.
you could team fight with Zed. You can team fight with a lot of different things. You could team fight with top lane split push Rek'Sai Razzleplasm.
oh my god, never again.
Never again. Okay. So, yes, the way you do team fight with Fizz is probably somewhat similar to the AP Fizz.
Yeah.
Is you look for the fish to kind of initiate, and then you use the abilities to help with some of the regen against like some of the bigger picks and the tanks. So,
Yeah.
and then you hop around and you can get people to waste a lot of CC by hopping around. Look at that. If they're dumb and don't realize that you're Fizz. Anyway, moving on. Since I think we did have a good filling of Brazil for a little bit, what are the next playoff games that people should look forward to if they're interested in CB LOL?
INTZ and Pain should be a pretty good set. Like I said, Pain didn't really show us anything strategically in terms of like what they'll likely bring to the table against INTZ. And INTZ is the best team in Brazil. So, I always enjoy watching them play. And then Kaboom Black Cade, it's going to be slightly more difficult for Kaboom Black. I feel like they did a good job with their team fighting in terms of like what they were able to do over the course of the 3-week break. Going up against Cade's going to be really difficult for them because Cade is very strong early game, and Kaboom Black's early game is their weakest point. So they'll have to somehow overcome that. But that's the second set. I think the closer set will likely be Pain INTZ, and it does kind of break my heart to say that because I love Kaboom Black, but I think that will probably be the better of the sets, and they're both best of 5, so we'll see. And a lot of time to adapt.
What odds do you give Skybart and Danagorn against the Valiant Cade?
Well, Cade has Daydream. He's a lot quicker in terms of like his overall jungle style. They have him do a lot of things on that team. And then Skybart will be going up against Mylon, and Mylon is a very strong top laner, so it's gonna be difficult. The last time these two teams met, it was not good for Kaboom Black.
Odds.
Odds? I would say... Oh, man. Okay, so I have to make a prediction on that set. I'd say it's going to be probably a 3-1 in favor of Cade. It's being a little optimistic, but I'd say 3-1 favor of Cade
Okay.
Stars.
And what does Kaboom Black need to do to win?
Force them into 5v5 team fights. Because Cade, they're a really good team. They have really strong players. They have a very strong early game, but they have some miscommunication issues still because they do have the 2 Korean players. So you see a lot of the times where a lot of their players instinctively know what to do, but they're not necessarily all on the same page. So if Kaboom Black can get an advantageous 5v5 team fight and just continue to do that to take objectives, that would be their strongest. Or they wait for Cade to initiate on them, like to be overly aggressive and then counter initiate like they did against CND. So
So,
that's what they have to do.
speaking of Koreans, okay, we're gonna leave Brazil now and go to the land of Lick and discuss this weekend. There was a really exciting set between Jin Air and Najin. And this set is pretty relevant because Najin is kind of drifting towards, they're losing their chance to make it into the playoffs. More or less. So, but also you're seeing Jin Air become a bit stronger and stronger over time. They're working on some of their mid-game issues that they've had in the past. So let's start off and let's talk a little bit about some of those mid-game weaknesses. Do you think that this series against Najin showed that they're doing better in the mid-game? Do you think that Najin made a lot of early misplays that just allowed Jin Air to stay in the game, or what are your feelings on Jin Air's mid game right now?
I don't know if you want me to answer. I think I'll go unless I'm stuck. I think I think that Jin Air did show that they're shoring up some of their mid game weaknesses. I think they still made a few errors, and I also think that Najin was a bit slow to actually capitalize. Like there's one time I remember where Najin just basically gave up their mid turret for free for pretty much no reason, and then there were a couple of other misplays they had. I feel like Najin, it was really easy to show where a lot of their weaknesses were. As much as I love Captain Jack, he did misposition himself a couple times, in mid-game fights. So, I mean, they still have a lot of things they need to work on. But overall, I was happy to see what Jin Air did, just because I saw them against GE the previous 2 weeks ago, right before IEM. And they had this really great early game plan, but then they were unable to win the game because they basically lost everything in the mid game. All of their early advantages, they just gave them up. Even though Lee was doing horribly on Rengar and G Tigers had no idea what to do, how to play with a Rengar on their team. They just looked really confused in team fights, and Jin Air still ended up losing that game because they basically didn't know how to play out their mid game. So I thought they did a lot better against Najin, and Najin is a team who struggles when they don't get that really, really early advantage. Typically this year, we've seen that their playstyle has been more let's get OQ really super fed on Kalista, and then he's just gonna kill everyone, or let's get, basically they really, really want to snowball their early game very, very quickly, so then they can just kind of steamroll opponents. That's kind of been their overall style this year. So
I've been pretty unlucky when it comes to OGN scheduling, because usually I tend to watch the VODs, and I watch and the one team that I tend to watch the least is Jin Air. But when I do watch them, their early game,
what is
I love.
wrong with you? They're the
God.
best team.
I think for one, I don't think I don't know if this is even, actually this was a discussion in the sense that people questioned Gank by Mom, in the sense of oh, did he really improve as a player, or what, or did everyone all the super Koreans leave the region, did that affect it? And I think I would say I can understand that argument. But I think he got significantly better, and you even saw it in one of the Solo King tournaments, in which, just as a side thing, it was just a 1v1 mechanical tournament where he came out to be the best. He literally took first place and beat Faker 2-0, and he himself has improved exponentially. But the team is interesting in the sense that they're fine in the early game, but they're so reactive, in my opinion. When they get to the mid game, they don't really do anything, regardless of whether they have a lead or not. And it's it's sad, and I feel their games get too late a lot of times, unnecessarily. I don't know.
Well, that's kind of their thing, right? They pick a poke composition, and then they fall behind in the mid game, and then they have to somehow like miraculously turtle until like the
Yeah.
50-minute mark until they can like come make a miraculous comeback.
Yeah, that team.
So, speaking of one of the in the first game of the series, I really, something you might not know about me is I really like Sivir Maokai kind of collapse compositions. I think that those sorts of flanks are really exciting. And for a while, we saw Sivir take a backseat when Callista kind of came into the fray, because Callista does really well against Sivir with like all the kiting, dodging the Q, things like that. But now we're seeing a lot more immobile AD carries with the auto attack mechanic, like the Jinx, like the Kog'Maw. Are we going to see more of these kinds of really collapse, hard engage compositions, do you think? Like Janae ran with Sivir, like TSM ran in the IEM finals. What is your take on that?
We're gonna see a lot of compositions. I think that's a lie.
We're going to watch League of Legends. I think there will be some champions played there.
I was about to say that you're gonna see a lot of like variety, but that, like, honestly,
That's not true.
the tank meta is gonna kill it all. Like, that's just what it's gonna come down to. You're gonna see a lot of dive. You're gonna see a lot of heal for like whatever auto attack AD carry you get. I actually like the last meta decently. Like, it was fine. But now it's basically gonna be season 2. Some
But
people
there-
are like that.
There is a point. I think my internet is somewhat okay right now, so I'm gonna try to get this out as soon as possible.
Welcome back, Reasoning.
Go, Reason,
So,
go.
so if I'm not mistaken, like on 5.5, it may be my personal bias, but I do think that whoever is gonna be able to dive better is gonna get strong. Is gonna be stronger with this patch. Not only because you have tanks, but also because of because of the second tier shield. I believe it's the mid lane shield only. That is, they reduce. Overall, they all reduce the shield
Oh, yeah.
that they give to champions, right? So first of all, that's gonna not only you can have you can poke them out easier, but you also can dive them easier, because usually you don't want to dive when you have 200 shield, because you have to hit extra 200 hit points in order to kill that champion. But right now it's only 30 more or something like that. And other than that, there is also the minion effect, because they added the minion is gonna gain some health over time, right? So the turret is going to, the tier 1 and tier 2 turret, they are going to take the same amount of time to kill the minions, but they didn't say that tier 3 is going to do it. They didn't say, and the champions, players ourselves gonna take more time to clear those waves, which means if we have a Baron buff, the Baron buff is actually somewhat minor buff, so it actually creates a minor easier time for you to tower dive level 2 tier 2, and easier time to push down tier 3, especially when you have Baron. And that makes me think, with the addition of the tank,
And
so yeah, basically tank plus those stuff that I mentioned. You got diving is a lot easier and a lot scarier, and that plus with the
oh my god.
that's what's gonna make Kog'Maw Jinx strong. Anyways,
Dude.
yeah.
How do you feel about Vision in that context then? Because if you're afraid of being dived all the time, does like having proper vision, does that change the way we want to ward the map? Like, is that an issue going forward?
If you're afraid of being dived,
Or are you just screwed? Is it just gonna be all dives all the time?
I just no. I just think it got a minor buff, but I don't think it's like over. I don't think it's very dominant, but I think it's got quite some buff in that context. So I thought that people who can play dives are going to have better time. But I mean that other other kinds of compositions won't work because your poking still gonna work and the other stuff is still gonna work. It's just that just specific my bias to I love seeing tower dives. Thought that is gonna be fun, but because that, it involves a lot of quick decision in when you're team fighting, precision and everything. But in terms of vision, I thought it doesn't change much, to be honest. It doesn't change because of the composition being buffed or anything. It's still the same thing. You gotta work. Your vision is still gonna be based around your composition. If you're going to create picks, you're gonna have to do a lot of sweeping. If you're gonna team fight, you're gonna make sure you're fighting within your vision. And then if you're gonna try to siege or rotate a lot, then you need a lot more green words than just sweeping. Stuff like that. So I mean it doesn't change much in my opinion.
I think I'm going to be a little different in that sense because we're going to see a lot more, of course, like tank junglers are coming back. But what does that mean? We're already seeing a lot more sight stones coming back in the junglers. We're seeing a lot more just basic preference when it comes to utility. So when you see that preference, before you already saw like teams when they had like buy jungle, anything based around like that damage pick portion. They'll kind of like at times they'll either try to sneak dragons, the early dragon, or they'll just straight up just ignore it because it's like it's the first dragon, who cares? That investment we'll just I'll team fight them later. But now that you're seeing a lot more value in just like in early warding, early vision control, early dragon contestants, just so you can actually get the investment later on for the third, the fourth dragon. I think vision's gonna matter a lot more. I think you're gonna be seeing a lot more vision on the map, just like scattered, because you have like Sightstone just makes it so much easier, so much easier. I don't know. It depends. Like yeah.
Sightstone Jarvan never dies.
Oh my
He
God.
lives on forever. Okay, so to wrap up Korea a little bit, let's talk about how we're starting to look at the bottom. We're starting to look at CJ and Najin. Najin, who at the beginning of the split should have been good. Like in theory, Najin was going to be a good team, but it's starting to look like they're having less and less of a shot at playoffs, right? So how do we feel? Like what went wrong with Najin? Do they have a chance to overtake CJ in the coming weeks? How do we feel about Najin right now? I think you're muted.
Me, you gotta. Okay.
Well,
Are we good?
yeah, I think we're okay.
Oh my God!
Okay.
What happened?
Alright, anyway. Najin got screwed over by roster swaps, that's all I wanted to say. I mean...
Sorry, Najin was hacking the show.
Nah,
Because they care so much about our opinions. Anyway. Yes.
I mean, it's like they have a really good roster, and for whatever reason, like first of all, they didn't play their strongest AD carry for like the first part. They only played him like half the time. And then second of all, they keep using Watch. Now that they still use Watch last week, even though they had Peanut. And Peanut, even though he has shown sometimes that he isn't as proficient in the vision game, he's highly proficient in everything else. So I mean, even in like his latest games I saw him in, he looked like he improved his vision control from set to set. So
I don't see why you wouldn't play the team that gives you the best chance of making playoffs. I don't
And
get
the
it.
fact that he's known as a Rengar player and you see how he plays that champion, it's like, okay, so he has a good understanding of counter ganking and like general like map control, like 3-6. That's already right there. It's like, alright, let's just remove botch.
Pretty much.
So, are we
That's the
waiting?
moment.
Are we waiting for the weakness Peanut has that teams could easily expose, and then suddenly he's no longer good? So they're just gonna play watch until the last possible moment and hope they make playoffs, and then Peanut can just like cheese through playoffs.
I'm ready for
Oh my god, you uncovered their actual secret strategy.
Their super secret strategy. That, and they have to have watch play enough games in the season so they can get a free ticket to Worlds. So,
it. God bless.
speaking of Korean junglers, though, did anyone get a chance to watch Tom?
He was pretty good. I mean, well, I'm saying that, and like, I have gone on the show and previously not liked Bengi much at all. But I will say this: he's again like, because he's newer. He's obviously not going to have the same amount of like vision control or just overall understanding of where to place vision in terms of like a overall team. But so obviously he needs to coordinate a little bit better with Peekaboo on that too. But I think his team fighting is a lot stronger. And I feel like, I don't know. I'm not like the person to ask because I'm not the biggest Bengi fan in general.
I don't think anybody's the biggest.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't really know
So, like,
any Bengi fans.
I mean, like you can have him coordinate with Peekaboo. You can have him like even Peekaboo himself he started off really well, but he's grown a lot during the season. So I feel like you can have him learn those kind of vision things. But I feel like the team fighting presence he brings is a lot more valuable than what Bengi brings to the team, which is like not team fighting presence.
In fact, it's gotten to the point where every time I just mention SK Telecom offhand, the immediate response from the community seems to be it used to be, oh my gosh, Faker is a god. Now the immediate response is, that team would be so much better if they just benched Bengi. So, I don't think you're unique in that you're not a huge Bengi fan. That said, Tom, Udyr. Is Udyr going to be a pick, or is it something that he's going to have to put away with other childish things? Is it going to be like a huge SK Telecom pocket pick? Are people going to end up banning it against them? Like, what's going to go on with this Udyr? What were some strengths of the Udyr and perhaps some flaws?
I mean, okay, Udyr has always had a really strong early game, I think. Like, it's very, I can even put that with an asterisk. So it's like, it's one of those things that he's obviously gonna put away. It's like, I think that's like every real jungler. Like every jungler is gonna come in with some random pick, everyone's gonna praise him, and like, alright, now you gotta play seriously. But Udyr's great. Like, we've seen Diamond play Udyr. Like, he has a lot of strong ganks, like early jungle, like early dragon control if you want to use him for that purpose. But then he always had the same weaknesses in team fights and just general, he can get kited. And it's like, if you're playing Udyr at that point, then why not just play Volibear? Because at that point, at least he runs faster. Like, at that point, it's like, you gotta have something. So,
But the stuns rise.
Udyr has so much potential, but that's where it ends.
Okay. So we're in agreement that Udyr is not going to be a big, huge power pick for SK Telecom that everyone has to ban. Alright.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
It was just unexpected.
So let us move on to, if we have, since Reasoning is here, let's take advantage of this. So the Yoi Flash Wolves, the Facebook, I guess administrator, I don't know if that's a technical term or even a usable term, posted saying that the Yui Flash Wolves might not be in LMS this coming weekend. They might not get to play, and then they'd reevaluate and see what happens going forward. First of all, what happened behind that initial Facebook post, Reasoning?
So to clarify right now, I think my internet is good right now. For now, I want to update the news first. The news is so there's this assistant manager, assistant to the team manager. She posted a new announcement. I translated it for Nilu, and it will come out soon. I think I translated it, and it basically goes like this: Yui Flash Wolves will not go disbanding. They will play on the playoffs, and everything is okay now. But I'll explain what happened earlier. In this new statement, she stated that she wants everyone to calm down. It's over. We want the players to focus on the games for 12th of April. So that's the playoff. That's the playoff for LMS, and they are going to. They accepted the fines, and they gave out all the compensation from Garena to charities, which is about 70K of USD right now. So, and that's a lot of money, and I thought that was a very stupid incident. So what really happened is, okay, so the incident back here, basically, you know how Yui Flash Wolves went to IEM, and we were like, oh my god, this team is actually performing better than we thought. We thought they just get stomped or something, but they actually perform better than we thought. But if you're going back to Taiwan, okay, just so you know that Asian and just Reddit, because Reddit, they are just good kids usually, and I know there are some toxic people maybe in Reddit, but they are not as toxic as Asians can be. So even though Taiwan is a little community, okay, they can be very toxic, just like Chinese forums, very, very toxic. Okay, but
God.
TLDR are salty commentators, right?
Yeah.
So, while we're waiting for him, I can kind of sort of fill in my version of the situation from talking to him, is that some of the administrators and higher-ups got very upset about what happened with a lot of the angry posters on some of these very toxic Taiwanese people. Okay.
yes, and they hacked me. They are hacking me right now.
First it was Najin, now it's the
my
Taiwanese forum.
You're getting
Okay,
a lot of
so-
attention here.
So these toxic people, they went on the Yui Flash Wolves fan pages, the fan page, and they're actually just leaving toxic comments, which is very normal. We just have to ignore them, just like what normal teams do. But this editor, okay, in Taiwan, usually teams actually hire the fans, like maybe one of the more enthusiastic fans, to manage their fan page, which is very stupid. They do it as an editor, okay? So they don't provide basic PR training, in my opinion. So this editor, I'm not sure if he was a fan or if he is what, but he did the PR very poorly. But so basically, he triggered a war between him and the toxic people, and then this war because of his poor PR and poor wording, even the good people in the community started to join the war and say, how can you say words like that, blah 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 blah. So this war on the fan page went on, kind of snowballed into a very big fight. And then for Yui Flash Wolves, the Yui Flash Wolves mother company. So Yui Flash Wolves is like, they run like Samsung. Samsung owns a team, and CJ owns the team, stuff like that, right? It's not like TSM is an organization or CLG is an organization. It's a team owned by another company. Okay, so Yui Flash Wolves' mother company is called One in International, and they saw this. Oh my god, this esport thing is already a money-losing thing. But it's here for our corporate image. We're just helping the society or something. I mean, holy. Is it pardon my language. So they saw this incident, how everyone is raging at your splash walls. They thought, first of all, we don't have ROI at all, and then people are raging at us. Why not just quit? Why not just? At that point, when that came out, basically the top from the mother company, they want to quit, but the team doesn't want to quit. The team manager, the players, they still want to play. So Garena went in and tried to talk the.
Garena went in and tried to talk some sense into them.
There we go.
I think the results of that must have been positive if they're going to be playing going forward. So that's good.
Okay, so basically, I'm almost finished. I'm sorry, guys.
No worries.
Basically, this mother company was trying to stop the team, but the team still wants to play. Garena came in to say, please, just continue to play. But they still didn't attend the last game of LMS. That's why they received a fine. But everything is resolved. The team is going to continue to play. The mother company, okay, believes in the team again. Oh, it's just a misunderstanding. The communication wasn't there. That's all. Just a stupid mistake from starting from a very stupid editor that snowballed the whole thing. So remember, give your editor or whatever a proper PR, so you don't have Yoi Flash Wolves.
So you can,
Thank you.
There we go.
This has been a valuable lesson to us all.
The lesson we've all learned.
Did they play? Because like from what I heard, they forfeited the game, but they showed up like in plain clothes, so not representing UA Flash Wolves because they didn't know what was going on. And did they end up playing like a show match, but like the actual match was forfeited, or did they not play at all? Because I wasn't clear on that.
I wasn't clear on that because I personally just watch VODs.
Okay.
Personally, so I'm not sure what exactly happened. I'm sorry on that though.
No, that's okay. From what I heard,
Yeah.
like they showed up and
I
like
think
everyone was like, "Whoa, they're here," but they weren't in they obviously weren't in their Yoe Flash Wolves uniforms because they still couldn't technically like represent the company.
Yeah.
But then they ended up they did forfeit the match, but they ended up playing it, even though it didn't count. Is what I heard, but I don't know if that's true. So
Randomness.
yeah,
Statistical.
and that's how it ended.
Yeah, but yeah. However, just believe in your Flash Wolves. They are actually. I do think they're actually getting stronger. Getting stronger, even though they forfeited. Yeah, because it was from what I basically went on there and I saw. Okay, auto win for HQ. Damn, and so I didn't. It didn't matter. It didn't matter to me at all. So I went on, but. Yoi Flash Wolves has shown that in this week that they are actually improving on one of their weaknesses, which is, in my opinion, their minion wave control. And even though it's been interesting to me. And not only Yoi Flash Wolves, but HKE is kind of improving on forming their own style. And I do think the coming patch HKES will be a lot stronger, but TPA is dropping a lot in this sense. Mm-hmm. So I mean, do we want? It's just like it's kind of weird because before IEM, it's basically Yoi Flash Wolves and TPA in a tier, and like they are top tier. In the middle tier is like HKES and HQ, and then the rest is just like there. Kind of like that. That's to some level. It kind of feels like that. So because the top four and the bottom four they have huge disparity. But right now TPA, I'm not sure if it's just this week, but they have been performing very weird. And I did have a theory that they might be already hitting their ceiling already because 3 of their players are already so old. They haven't been improving much already because. See, the jungler, the support, and their mid lane. they all of them are very old and they don't have much growth potential from there. And ironically, even though HKES is kind of like consists of a lot of older teammates, they actually are improving in the sense that they are improving based on their former experience and they're starting to play more like a team. Okay, so and then this coming patch is more of a, it's gonna be in their favor because Dinter, their jungler, HKS jungler, he actually plays a lot more tanks, junglers. He knows how to gank. He has this, he's a smart player right there. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the playoffs turn out.
Do you think that? So it sounds like you don't think TPA is gonna bounce back at all. This is kind of shocking for some people because it's always been like TPA, TPS, AHQ at the top. How do you think? Are you convinced it's gonna be HKES and HKE and the UA Flash Wolves like as the top two teams coming at by the end of the playoffs? Is that how it's gonna pan out, or do you think TPA will still be relevant enough to sort of knock HKE down?
So right now I'm actually not sure. I do think that HKE has improved over the course because it's been a gradual process that is very clear. But TPA it can rather than potential. They don't have much. TPA doesn't have much growth potential, but okay, they don't have much growth potential. But last week was kind of like a little dip that doesn't normally happen. So I do think that they are still relevant in the sense of their top tier team, but I'm not sure if this little dip is going to continue. But so in a sense that I don't know if who is gonna be better, HKES or TPA. UH Flash is definitely gonna be on top, but LHQ, I'm sorry, I don't see much going on. Yeah.
So I asked you to choose if you had to between HKE and TPA. Well, who do you think is going to be the best by the end of the playoffs of those two teams?
I'm leaning towards HKES, just because I don't think they are fixing their problem, which is the consistency of their top laner Morning, which is very weird because in the beginning of the split he was laner, and he's been very inconsistent recently. It feels like he's having some emotional issues, and I don't know what's going on with TPA. It's more of an internal problem that's making them playing like a team to playing not like a team, which is very weird. So no, I do think that HKES should be the better one from the current trend.
Okay, so what do you think is HKE's biggest strength as a team? What do you see about them that's improving going forward? That's going to kind of define them and their new reign of dominance, pseudo dominance, because I'm assuming UA Flash Wolves is still going to be better.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good job. Okay. I'm saying good stuff here, so stop hacking me. Okay. Basically, HKES is any diverse team or something. They actually have been very one-dimensional, which is team fighting. They actually love team fighting. It's probably also because they have support as their. They have a Korean as their support, and so first thing to solve your communication issues is to team fight. That's it's the first thing you go to because it's a lot more about the internal connection. So I think that they have been sharpening their team fighting, and other than that, they actually have been grouping a lot earlier recently because what used to be their problem is that yes, they can team fight. They were fairly good at team fight, but they were not grouping early, and plus they didn't know how to deal with minion waves, vision, and everything. Screw it. We only know how to team fight. We only just play late game, and that they slowly lose out edges, just like that. But in this week, they have been grouping a lot earlier, and they have been roaming a lot like a unit rather than just their support. Ole, I know Emily knows Ole a lot. Ole, it used to be just Ole trying to roam and trying to create plays on his own. Ole is their support player, but right now they are more roaming, more like a team, more like a unit, which is interesting development from the style, which is heavily focused on just team fighting. I guess that's why Frank loves them so much, right? Team fighting. But yeah, anyways.
He's talking about Riot Mirki from
Yes.
Lolly Sports.
Yes. I do think that trying to they are trying to more of how do I say, improve on their own style, on their own pace, rather than copying a lot. Like trying to find something that doesn't fit them. That doesn't fit them. I think that is very. I do like that direction from where they are going, and I actually like their coach. Being what I was because when I used to be on Machi, I used to stream with HKES a lot, and they can improve a lot faster. They can improve a lot faster in a sense that coach can tell what is the major mistake and major weakness of that last game, or he's actually been a very good pick and ban coach in that sense. Because I had a hard time against him, but not a hard time against HQ or quite a few teams. So I do think that it's been. Everything they have been going on their own direction. That's why I have been putting my bets on HKES. Very one-dimensional, but very trying to perfecting their way.
Well, speaking of one-dimensional teams, we're moving on to LPL.
Yes.
So.
Yay.
Very briefly, since Emily has to go, and I know she really does enjoy LPL, what would be one takeaway that you have from the LPL this weekend as your send-off, or one thing that you're excited about for Demacia Cup or LSPL or anything going forward?
I'm excited to see my favorite LSPL team play and hopefully make it through playoffs because I love Emmy on Vichi's second team, so I want him to do really well because I saw him in the promotional tournament and I was really impressed with him. That's also the team that Heart is on, for anyone who remembers Samsung Blue from last year, their support. I'm really, something that I'm excited about. I automatically go to something I'm really sad about, which is Star Royal Club. I'm really sad about where their playoff prospects are right now. And I'm kind of, I guess not nervous, but I will be curious to see what happens to that team in the off season, I guess, because they did spend so much time without their AD carry that at this point, unfortunately, there's really not a lot of time for them. And going O2 to WE was not good. So I'm actually kind of really sad about that. I was hoping that, Name was just going to come and then all their problems would be magically solved.
Because that's how it always works in real life now.
Hard carry them to victory, or at least hard carry them into the top 8, so they could figure out more of their issues in playoffs. And his debut was ridiculous. I was the entire time I was just oh my gosh, Name. But obviously they still have a lot of really similar issues. I was happy to see that Cola was playing because that's kind of the lineup that I wanted to see was Cola, Insec, Korn, and then Name and Zero.
But were you really?
Yeah.
I just mean in terms of how they did.
I just, well, yeah, they didn't do well. But I don't know. Like, I was curious to see that lineup, and I'm kind of sad that obviously, like, and I know Kelsey, you've spoken to this a lot more than, and you know a lot more than me about. Like, they did have actually a lot of internal issues on the team in terms of, like, confidence issues or just minor disagreements or that kind of thing. And I know that before, even though I know they were scrimming with Name before he actually joined them for competitive play, I think the team morale was, like, really, really bad from what I heard. So maybe
You could see it. You could see it if you were watching like the stream after the first game, and Insect just looked like he was crying, like holding his face. I don't think I've ever seen Insect that down, and he was on KT, so it should say some things.
I'd much rather like to look at the.
That was my send off to Emily, who is a big KT fan. But Emily will be going, so I might have to do some slight adjustments with the overlay, but thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Emily.
Great to have you.
Yes.
Okay.
So this will work for very temporarily, but then we'll have to do some overlay adjustment. But welcome to Into the Rift, Steven. How are you doing today?
Can't hear you, buddy. He's probably not saying anything.
He looks like he's trying to talk. Oh, he's putting on his mic now.
There we go.
Just gonna.
I'm not bad. There it goes.
Are you
Well, I mean,
wearing
I've been
your
sitting here the
gunners?
entire time. No.
God. Oh my god.
No.
Alright.
Do you need glasses or us?
Alright. Welcome, sir.
Salt.
do some slight
That
adjustments.
KT comment was a brutal Coliseum.
Should feel bad.
I'm harsh sometimes.
Sometimes.
So I'm gonna fix up this overlay, but as we're talking, I wanted to talk a little bit about, I think the standouts were, this week we had some top performers not do so well. Specifically Snake and OMG. We're showing some signs of weakness.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk perhaps a little bit about that to start off. Perhaps some of the start off. I mean, first of all, to contextualize some of this, we saw some really crazy picks coming out. So a lot of people are saying things like, at least for OMG, their coach is telling them to play things that they're not good at. They don't care at this point. How they've been using this excuse all season. Like, how far do we buy it? Is it still valid? What's happening here with OMG?
Oh, Jesus Christ. This team has, like, the moment they came in, riding on their, I'm gonna go with the Black Stallion because they're OMG. Ha ha ha. They had this
Horrible.
mega roster. Yeah, it's pretty bad. And they had their, like, every single time you watch their pick and ban phase, for the most part, it's like, not every single time, it's going too far, but for the most part, it's poor. It's weird. Their strategy going into games are bad, and then you see how they play out some of these games, and it's just like, what are you doing? Did you pre-plan? And so a lot of these questions are usually questions that you should be directing towards their coaching, because, like, because picks and bans generally, of course, you look at their coaching. Like, that's what it comes down to. Picks and bans, how you play out an early game, how you play out a composition, as bad as the composition at times are. Like, that's why I see some credence to the claim, because you look at, especially the Rek'Sai top. Rek'Sai top is not bad, but you have to have, like,
Really?
play around it well enough. Like, you gotta know how to play it, and it just doesn't seem like that. I don't know, man. This is one of the times that I trust UZI and his random public statements that come out sometimes. So
To an extent, you do think that there might be some credence to the claim that their coach wants them, which is what the statement was. UZI said that their coach specifically told them to play things that they're bad at. But then the question becomes, okay, so we're playing things we're bad at. Why are we giving away really good picks like Rek'Sai and Lulu and Ari? All to the same team, Invictus Gaming. Like, so okay, we can play things we're bad at, but why are we playing things we're bad at against things that we're good at?
Yeah.
That's rude.
And
That makes sense.
yeah, and I've always had problems with the OMG coach, but I don't even think I've like actually looked into who he is or what his name is.
They're actually kind of secretive about their coaching staff for whatever reason, but I think from what I've been able to gather is that he was involved in an esport, not League of Legends, prior to coaching OMG.
Probably Dota then?
He's
Like
Korean,
Oh,
so
sounds
not
like StarCraft to me.
StarCraft, yeah.
in an esport, not necessarily StarCraft, but not League of Legends, and he wasn't a coach beforehand either. So I'm not
So
sure.
what was he then?
I don't know. That's just what we.
Part of
That's
the mystery.
Before it's like fire that hero.
Oh my god.
it's just a little bit interesting that the team that prides itself on being all Chinese seems seemingly imported a Korean coach just because he's Korean. That would be my interpretation of this scenario. Of course, I don't know for sure. I don't know any actual details. These are just things, again, that I've supposedly heard. But it would explain a lot of things about some of their draft phases. Beyond
But
that, though, that's just like the tip of the iceberg, right? Is the
Yeah.
draft phase.
Yeah.
If they're playing champions that they're bad at, and believe me, they're bad at
Yeah.
these champions. Like it's gone really terribly, and it's not bad at in such a way that they don't understand how to use skills or whatever. Their mechanics are bad. It's just that compositionally, the stuff that they're picking, like they'll pick huge tank line compositions and not team fight. Like it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Is that OMG is typically a team that just wants to kill you all the time, and then they pick like a composition that's actually good at that, and then they just try to avoid you and split push the entire game.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, it's not just the coaching. It's something like if you're bad at these champions, you're kind of screwed anyway.
And honestly, looking into this week, I thought this week would, or at least the results of these, like what we're coming away from this week with, like I feel like we should have seen this earlier. Like something, like for instance, OMG is a team that comes in, and we always knew that they didn't have strategy and that they kind of just relied on their individual skill. And then Snake was a team that they were really good at that one style, and that was it. So like I personally was like, all right, so when is Vici and IG gonna start coming up with because I've always been high on Vici and IG, maybe not so much for the right reasons.
Okay, we'll get to Vici Gaming and IG,
Okay, that's true.
but if we want to
That's
move
true.
away from OMG,
Yeah,
we
we'll
can
talk
maybe
about
talk a little
OMG.
bit about Snake some more. We talked,
So everyone loves Snake.
everyone's favorite team.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
question about Snake.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Because due to the timing of the LPL games, I don't get to watch a lot of them. But how does Snake survive with the 80 carry tank? That's been a very big question to me. Like, because I was able to watch their games. I think
The energy
couple
pacemaker
days
set.
ago. Couple days ago, and yes, it was against a very bad team. And he was still, his positioning was still very like. It's as if he's the tank line of his team, and his team just cleans up for mid.
Snake plays Juggernaut. Every single composition they run is actually a Juggernaut composition. That's pretty much how they do it in some way. He can position very far forward, but because of all of the zoning champions they play, like the Nunu, the Jarvan, he just gets his they play Janna so often. He gets like so much peel. He gets more peel than even UZI. Like they legit have Flandra, and this isn't peeled, but it's again it shows like how many resources they put onto Crystal. They have their top lane Maokai building Zeke's Herald
Yeah.
when he's the only auto attack based champion in the game is their Kog'Maw. So it gives you a little insight into how Snake plays.
Especially
Raz
when that
can
build-
talk a little bit more. Or
Yeah.
Especially with that build putting, I think Maokai over 50% CDR or something like. That's really how much they want to get Crystal going.
Yeah, that team's pretty sad in that sense that they are really, really all inning on getting Crystal like to that point. Because like in the LSPL they had he always played the same champions. Everybody knew it. Like it was Draven, like Kog'Maw, Draven, Kog'Maw. I guess some Tristana near the end because I guess Tristana was like a hyper carry at that point. So and it was just simply because like he can get to that late game portion and he will not. Like it doesn't at that point. It doesn't matter what his positioning is because he's gonna kill you. He's gonna two-shot you. That's literally what it is.
You will die with glory after cutting your carries.
And he won't die because he has his team
Well, that's-
healing for him. Like it's just, and that's the whole point. And so what's the difficulty with the Juggernaut composition? Everybody keeps talking about it. It's a difficult composition to run, but. Like for this team, it's just naturally that's who they are as a team, and sure. So now that they're all inning on it, like Flandre is now pretty much like is on tank duty or at least Maokai duty, and so like he's getting now. People are starting to criticize him and his skills, and I don't see it. Like I don't because he plays poorly sometimes. He does, but it just comes around to the fact that the team is literally playing around Crystal, and if you put Crystal now, this is where the problem's coming in this week. Where you see teams starting to attack Snake's composition because they call him on it. Like they call him on that bullshit. Like Vici will literally get away with banning out Kog'Maw and it starts with a K. Like Kalista, Kog'Maw Kalista. Literally 280 carry bans. It gets like they're free to do that.
ban out
because
2K champions, and you ban out Crystal.
KK.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Why did that happen?
I was trying to
boy.
find. I'm not even kidding. For the longest time, I've been trying to find a third K champion. Be like, I can't do it. And then I just could have used the fact that his name is Crystal. See, I didn't even. All right, but yeah, like honestly, and then he goes on Corky, and then he just sucks. It's not even that he sucks. It's just that.
It doesn't
doesn't
fill the
make-
same role as the other AD carriers do.
Yeah, and he has to play correctly. He has to be positioned properly. Sure, he has like a way to get out, like he has his W, but it does. Like he doesn't output nearly as much damage as
He
can.
can't
like,
two-shot you.
Yeah,
He can't die with glory.
yeah, and of course the team has poor. Honestly, the team regularly or at least generally has a decent 2v1, but like they just got outdone like completely by Avicii, so that was sad. And then Invictus Gaming, they decided to go in a different route by literally trying to out team fight the Juggernaut composition by just simply bursting him down and by having more sustained damage like with Vayne. So that was a very, very interesting way of playing that one out. So like now what are you gonna do? What is Snake gonna do now that they can't play that composition they've literally almost always played? So I don't know what's gonna happen with that thing.
They have one other composition, right? This one
Oh,
that I
yeah?
actually really liked, the poke composition. But the problem
Yeah, that's
is, it's Xerath reliant, right? So you can.
Baka's, most favorite champion.
Yeah.
ever.
But I really liked this poke composition because I think a big criticism of Beast that people have been levying at him is that he can only play Nuno and Jarvan, and that's not been the problem with Beast. The problem with Beast has been that he's restricted to playing these champions when they play these Kog'Maw or Crystal-centric compositions, like these really big zoning utility champions. And then we saw him on Nidalee, and this guy was just like a monster playing in this poke composition. So,
What else do
unfortunately,
you play? Like, what other jungles is he known for?
I mean, that's pretty much it. But he
not like-
he plays. It's not that he plays the other picks poorly. It's just that they don't
He just
really
does it. Yeah.
they don't have compositions for it.
Yeah, they don't. Hey, one thing I noticed is that 5.6 came out, like at least the patch notes for it, and it showed that Ziggs is getting a pretty nice buff, and that's literally that was the champion. That was the champion Baka played a lot in the LSPL, so that was his champion. Like he only just recently, like not even recently, like just out of LSPL started playing Xerath. His main champion was Ziggs, so that'll help him out in his like not getting completely banned out by just teams like putting a ban on Xerath. So that'll help out that team quite a bit, actually. That's something else that I've noticed.
His mana cost is changing. It's going down. Oh god.
Yeah, that and the fact that you can just get Athene's Unholy Grail now. That's actually an item.
Athene's is going to be so strong this coming patch. They're buffing its mana regen by back up to 100%, right?
Yeah.
Or not back up to, but they're yeah. You know what I
Pretty
mean?
good. Yeah.
Oh my god, Easy Hoon's gonna play him now, isn't he?
So we didn't really get to do trying to talk this week. So Raz and I are gonna have a moment here where we talk about Vici Gaming and Invictus Gaming. So
A question actually to you China Talk people. Okay? Where? Oh my god. I
You guys are official.
China Talk people. Okay.
Leaders trying to talk.
People saying that you guys hate Snake. You guys hate Snake because people misjudge Snake in they overhype Crystal and overlook other say Beast and Flounder. Oh, so you just don't like Snake.
For me, okay, this is where it comes down to. People, like, for me, it's not that I dislike Snake. I'm gonna be honest, I dislike Crystal. That's what it comes down to. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
How can you dislike Crystal when he gives
If
us
you
like
wanna
those beautiful jumps with the Fizzult on him into his own team?
Oh, man.
No, I know how much you like comedy, Raz.
That is all I'm hoping for. The moment, I'm telling you the truth, the moment they can replace Crystal with an actual self-sufficient AD carry, you'll see great things from this team. Because Beast is a good jungler. Ella isn't I would put Ella as like the top support.
we're not gonna replace Crystal. He's too popular.
Ah, damn. And then Flandre, now all we're seeing is tank Flandre. I'm telling you, he's like the most flexible top laner. I promise. He's like the most flexible top laner in the scene.
Okay, so I have a question. Let's say Crystal's arm just like magically breaks one day.
What the hell? That's not something we can
Okay, Steve.
Hold on, I'm just like let's just say, well, for whatever reason, like Crystal gets kidnapped, he gets supported, or
For
his arm
whatever
gets
reason.
broken. He gets like he like trades in his league skills because he has a gambling debt. I don't know, whatever. He can't play for the rest of the split. Okay.
Yeah.
Who would you put in as an AD carry in from China or wherever, if you wish to go outside of China, and then to fully utilize the skills of the rest of the team?
Well. I mean, because since we can't use a third Korean, we're gonna have to go with the Chinese. So, like, that's what it comes
I mean,
down
there are
to.
decent 80 carries on LSPL teams, so I mean,
Yeah. Hey, and
I feel like Flandra. When you see Flandra play Maokai, he's just he's like a mid-tier top laner, right? But when you say him play like these carry champions like Fizz, like everyone thought he was going to be a god, right? So, I mean, they have another carry on the team, but he's not playing carry champions. So, and then they also have Beast. They can build compositions around Beast. So they have carry potential outside Crystal. It's not like they need to play this way because Crystal is the strongest carry they have. They need to play this way because otherwise Crystal will feed. And
Yep.
it's kind of how I feel. So it's not, and I kind of feel in a way like Snake is really good at compensating for this weakness they have, but they could open up a lot of other possibilities by playing with almost any other, like even a mid-tier AD carry.
Right. See, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I mean, even STYZ is free. Like, he's free on the market. he's out there now.
So does that mean that technically the Snake is greater than King?
Snake is greater than King?
I don't
Yeah.
know.
And at this
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
We talk about teams tanking their picks and bans and just like not understanding how to play their compositions. Like King and there's a trend in these Chinese teams. Like that's fun. No.
That's what I love, by the way, the fact that King, holy, this is this is the greatest thing, is that King, like, saw its success off of its OMG, like, dive, like, playstyle.
It's
and then now
just OMG's history accelerated. Like it's the same. King is OMG's like 2-year history crammed into like a half year.
You want to learn about OMG? Well, here's the TLDR. It's King, basically.
That sounds like that just makes me think Kelsey secretly put King together, just to reenact OMG's history for everyone.
Oh yeah. The thing about OMG that I get at is that they are like the Chinese team that's been dominant for the longest time, but they've been that way just because they won the talent lottery. Like they literally just like found the best Chinese top laner and mid laner, and we're like, oh my goodness.
Weird.
And then Leveling, who's incredibly versatile and can play support and jungle at a high level, so they suddenly just like had an amazingly successful, like, the thing is that keeping the Chinese purity, or to an extent, is almost like not an option for almost any team but OMG, just because they won the talent lottery. So if you aren't like the Chinese talent lottery, so until the next generation of these big Chinese players come along, which they haven't really yet, I mean, you can kind of see maybe some of them developing, but until they come into their own, like, unless you outsource, OMG is just still going to be there. Or you can be Snake, because I think Snake, and this is something that, and reason he asked this question about Snake, that was like, do you hate Snake? No, I actually find them very interesting in terms of like how successful and how well they understand the parameters of their team, but the way everyone seems to think that I hate things when I say that they're overhyped. For example, I don't even hate UZI. I don't even hate Crystal. I just think that they're like really, really oversold in terms of what they're capable of doing and their versatility. Like, I love versatile players, so.
Yeah.
And I like versatile teams, so why do I like OMG? I have no idea. Anyway,
It's the curse.
Oh. We wanted to talk about Invictus Gaming and Vici Gaming, right? And this was the big China talk moment here, because I think I'm guessing Raz is more impressed with Invictus Gaming, and I am more impressed with Vici Gaming right now. Yeah, so
is this are you two gonna duke it out right now?
I don't know, I'm curious about his take on why, because I see Invictus Gaming and I saw that one game which was really creative and really smart, right? But the rest, they're kind of like OMGing it, right? They're still kind of like just brute forcing games, because IG, I look at like the talent lineups, and I think EDG is like IG is like top 3 in terms of just raw talent on their roster. If you look at like the best players down the line in position, because Zatai, maybe not the best top laner, but he's improving really rapidly, and we know he's an incredibly mechanically skilled player.
Yeah.
Kakao, like one of the 2 best junglers in the world last year. Rookie, one of the top 4 Korean mid laners. Like, top 4 is very conservative, because you could argue that he was like top 2 or top 3 last year. You've got Kid and Kitties, who have always been like very consistent, very strong players. So, and in this sense, like, IG should be a top 3 team based on talent.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I see them still playing for the most part. They will have like these glimmers of, and even OMG will have these glimmers of like these really successful moments in terms of strategy. Like OMG's fast push composition against WE in Game 2, I thought that was actually really cool. Where they had the Sona for the sustain, and the fact that like her power chord will proc on turrets. And they had the new Lucian. And then like, so that I thought that was cool. But, well, not cool exactly, because cool is in the mid lane.
I knew you were going that direction, but I hope you were.
And I feel IG is very similar in their set against OMG, like where OMG just let them have the picks that OMG wants to have, and they were able to do what OMG does with those picks to OMG.
Oh my god.
In particular. So, I mean, that's my feeling on IG. I do think that they improved a lot, though.
I think Invictus Gaming, they're a weird one. Because, of course, they've always been improving in the sense that they've always been trying to find a style that worked for them. With how they were playing recently, and by recently, here's the thing. This is definitely a problem that I've seen in comparing IG to Vici, even. Vici has played 3 games in the past. Actually, they played
They played 3 sets, yeah. So they played 6 games.
Yeah, they had 1 set in the last week of LPL. They played the Demacia Cup and got demolished. And then of course in those in the last week alone, they got demolished by Invictus Gaming. Actually, that was a tie, and so it just wasn't really.
Both of those games were really bad by both teams. Like, you have to kind of admit that.
That's true. Okay, that's true. It was very poor, and with Vici, they didn't have much of they didn't have time to really show their improvement in that sense. Sure, this week they really showed great picks and bans and a great usage of a great execution of their composition. I liked it. It was great. With the Invictus Gaming, you can see the improvement that's been going on, like a slow kind of snowball of improvement. In either Zitai's play in top lane, that's before he was getting demolished. It was not a pretty sight. But now he's actually turning out to be a really good top laner. Well, a good top laner. He's gonna turn really good, hopefully. And one thing that I was really taken aback by, especially in their at that point in their game against game 2 against Snake, is when I really loved them, because their picks and bans were ingenious. It was a different way to really a different take against Snake, or at least the Juggernaut composition as a whole. Because with Vici, they literally just banned out 2 champions, and it was okay, well, they can go the Draven route. Unfortunately, Snake's coach doesn't like Draven, so I guess they're not gonna do it. So as much as I liked Vici's picks and their bans, I honestly think that Snake could have continued to go on to their Juggernaut pick, because they didn't ban Lulu. Those picks were still open. They could have just went Draven. They ran that composition before, but Snake's coach, or at least staff, doesn't like it, so they don't like the Draven pick. So okay, well, I guess that's not gonna happen. But Invictus Gaming let the picks go through. They had really smart bans for the most part, and picks. So they were okay, we were gonna run for anyone who didn't watch the set, the game, it was a full dive comp. It was Leona, Jarvan, Maokai.
It had Victor, which was good. I think
Yeah.
the Victor and Jarvan was, for trapping the Kog'Maw was really ingenious. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just on top of that, they had a Vayne. So for the most part, that's why the Vayne? Everybody hates Vayne in the sense that Vayne's a polarizing pick in general, because if you catch if anybody with any form of strength on the enemy team just focuses the Vayne is dead, without a doubt. But in a Juggernaut composition, you won't get that focus on Vayne, especially if everyone on your team is set to dive the Kog'Maw. Vayne is the most free pick out there, so it's this free DPS going down. And in that game, IG had some bad team fights. To be fair, even though they were really just steamrolling through Snake, they had some poor team fights that were I don't know, that you can still see the roughness of Invictus Gaming. But I do think that they're a team that are I think they're a lot more versatile than Vici, and there's a higher skill ceiling, in my opinion. So that's always there, and they're smarter from what we saw. So I think there's so much potential, and from what we saw, I think they're currently stronger than Vici, but that's up to opinion. I don't know.
I mean, and the other thing about the Vayne pick is they ran Dr. Mundo and Lulu, and what do you do with extra health? Silver bolts. Woo!
Woo!
Woo! Yeah, for people who are curious, that was my favorite game of the week. So, Invictus Gaming versus Snake Game 2 would be
Yeah.
a recommendation from the LPL side.
Don't
So,
watch game 1. That was a train wreck. Don't watch
it
that.
is VG Gaming. I feel like they really understand their compositions well. They really understand how to execute, and I've been looking for a team like that that isn't Snake,
Mm.
you know, for a while. And LGD kind of gets there, but they're up and down. And I think it's gotten to the point where this was, and people said, well, they didn't play that much, so you can't really gauge. But when you watch their sets that they played, like they played against Gamty and they played against Snake, you can see they suddenly really understand like their strengths, and in a less confused way than I think I've ever seen them. Like they have Hatong doing like this weird split push thing where he'll split push on literally any champion. Lichbane Victor, let's go.
Let's go.
That might be like the one point where they're still not sure. It's like we have this free mid lane, free fifth person that we don't really need. What do we do with him? But they have Dandy camping top lane because carry is probably like of the laners that they have the one with the highest carry potential. And then they have Vasily playing like the strong picks while Mata just literally controls the entire lane. And that's pretty much it. So that's why I felt that VG was really strong. I feel like they have a lot of understanding of their compositions and stuff. So I'm gonna ask a quick question I'm gonna let you go on LSBL playoffs, which are starting tonight, Raz.
Oh, boy.
And then I'm gonna open this window real quick.
Okay. So, oh boy, oh man. LSPL
Who's
has
playing?
been... Okay, so for tonight, we're going to see Xiaogu versus World Elite Future. That's going to be the second set. I don't even know why I started off by talking about the second set, but we're on
I
there.
really
anyways.
want that second set, man.
I really love that second set because Xiaogu is a team that actually is still in the Demacia Cup, the only LSPL team that's currently going through the Demacia Cup. And so it's like, wait a minute. Well, who did they eliminate? Well, they eliminated OMG.
As we were saying about OMG
As we
being
were talking about
The-
the fall of OMG.
I remember
Xiaogu.
hearing this rant. I remember hearing this rant from both Kelsey and Raz in the chat. Okay.
Like, so here the question is like, well, was Xiaogu like such an amazing team that they eliminated like the second best LPL team? No, they're nothing. I don't want to say that they're nothing special because I think they're a solid team.
they have a really strong jungler.
Yeah, they do. They're a good team. But OMG is random, like whatever. Like you watch the set, you're like, okay, what is OMG doing? But then again, you watch every OMG like LPL set, and you're like, what is OMG doing? So
That's the typical recurrence of...
yeah, it's typical. And then they're going up against World Elite Future.
Mhm.
Like, you want to talk about random roster swaps and changes, like kind of like what Najin's doing. Here's World Elite Future, where they're deciding to stuff as many old World Elite, main World Elite. They're just okay. So World Elite Future had such a good roster. They had nine.
Yeah, they
this
did.
Guy is they did. It's like 957 in the top lane, and I don't know why he's a number, but we're going on with this anyways.
I have never
Like-
seen such an amazing Morgana player in my life.
He was so good. Oh my god. He was such a good. Okay.
China replaces all of Raz's favorite players.
It just. I would probably. You know what? I'm probably just gonna like link the VOD of his. I'm probably just gonna like create an entire YouTube video of just his Morgana play, where
You're
he
gonna make
just
it
doesn't.
Sago.
He just doesn't miss a cue. Like that's what it is. This guy's a scripter. Like this guy is ridiculous. It was so he was dumpstering on every top laner he went up against in the LSPL. Like you get some problems there, but like it was what it was. And guess who they keep like switching him out for? Khan. Literally, the like. The World Elite Academy reject. Like, get him out of here, man. Get him out of here.
Hey, you don't you talk shit about those World Elite Academy rejects. I hear they're currently carrying WE and LPL right now.
Like, yeah. Can that be a range 5 scene, please?
And then they have Old B, but I don't even care about the jungler. I don't even have
They're like mid laner. Same thing with Energy Pace Baker. I don't care if they replace Shalala. I just care about Captain 57.
Yeah, that's all I care about. So, I don't know. I just want to see what roster they're going to use him. Like tonight, hopefully it's nothing too... I don't even know if I'm gonna. At the moment, I just want to see champion select. If they put in Khan, I'm like, I'm gonna go back to OGN. Like, that's what's gonna happen. I don't want to see what happens. But Chagu's a really strong team. They were in a really strong group, probably the strongest group. So I think that Chagu's probably gonna be the team that's gonna be fair and final. But we'll see how that works out. And tonight we'll also see VGP versus Legend Dragon. The Legend Dragon's a really fun team. Hey, actually, I think Reasony knows about Legend Dragon because they're mid laner
Pasa and
Pasa
Voidless.
and jungler Voidless. So they're really good. Like, I was actually pleasantly surprised when I initially saw them. Like they how hard they carried that team. But they've been steadily doing all right. The team, to be fair, they're in a weaker group, so there's not a lot. Like the hype that originally surrounded that team is kind of lost now. So VGP, the team with Heart, Amy, if anyone remembers him.
Got replaced by Dandy. Yeah.
Damn, I'm so I don't even know.
It's just
like,
such a.
It's the level of salt where you can't even avoid it because you're like, well, it's Dandy.
It's like obviously Dandy is an upgrade, but still.
Still, like, I'm angry, but you know what? I have no reason to be. Like, But yeah, that team's really solid.
So then you just look at the bottom line and you said you could have replaced the AD carry instead. You replaced the jungler.
Yeah.
We could have had Dandy on LGD and and Imp on Vici Gaming. Come on, guys, figure it out.
The random
This
roster
sounds like
swaps that were
the
happening.
Chinese clusterfuck version of like what's going on with Winter Fox right now.
I swear the Chinese like preseason was like the beginning of what's that movie called again? Jeez, what
movie?
The Wizard of Oz or something? When the random tornado is happening and you're like, oh my god!
Pretty much, yeah.
All these Korean players are flying in this tornado.
I think Steven is confused.
What team are we gonna land on?
I don't think he saw the Wizard of Oz.
I don't even remember anymore. I actually don't remember.
I followed your analogy. It was just really random. Okay.
It's red.
So LSPL is starting. So you said that you think the favorite to take it all is going to be Xiaogu.
Yeah.
What about ADG? How do you feel about them?
That team is basically Snake, like Hyper Snake, except they don't have like
How can you have a hyper snake?
they don't have weak links. They just have because I know that they're apparently switching out Baimi, I don't know how to name him,
Yeah.
with a Chinese player, and they're taking out Qi Xiaoyin, and moving and putting Move back into.
Right.
I like that change. I think that's gonna make them a lot more stable.
Okay.
But they haven't put in a lot of practice with that team, so I don't know how that's gonna work out for them. And honestly,
They're just
they're
they're gonna beat the GE Tigers
pretty weak.
in LSPL playoffs.
Yeah, that's what's gonna happen.
But
Yeah, that team work out. They're definitely gonna beat out Young Glory.
Move is really good.
Mm.
I mean, we didn't see much of him. I mean, I liked CCN, but Move is really good.
I honestly hope that Move has opened up his champion pool a little. He did have a lot of issues in the sense that like if he didn't have Lee Sin, he had problems. I think his Jarvan. I think I was unimpressed with his Jarvan play at the time. Jarvan won't be played that much now, hopefully. So I don't even think
I'm
that's like,
still unimpressed with Insects Jarvan.
yeah. So I don't know where that's gonna go. KX Happy versus OMD. Oh my dream. Because of course, if the main team was named Oh My God, you gotta name the B team Oh My Dream. As if that even makes any sense.
It's
not
like-
even like
Their motto is always like, "Oh my game, oh my dream." So they're
Yeah.
like, that's usually their motto thing. And
Maybe they'll name a team after you one day. Oh my Raz.
oh my, OMR.
I honestly think that this set is gonna be the most surprising one. OMD has been in a weaker group, and at the same time they've been a really solid team, but at the same time they've kind of played whatever the hell they wanted. Sometimes their picks are not really even rational because it's like, oh, they're just doing the style on their opponent. And so they're going up against KX Happy, who they struggled in their group, but their group was really difficult, and at the same time they're so you can see them as a little battle hardened. And they're a solid team. They're really good for the most part. So I don't know where that's gonna go. I think OMD is the team that's favored to get out of that, but KX Happy can definitely take that set if they go really hard. If like either of the teams' attitudes don't change. So that's pretty much it.
So, they also released today, or I think they released today. They may have released it earlier, but I found it today, okay? So that's all that matters. They
Yeah.
released the bracket for the LPL promotion tournament. And it's going to be best of threes, I think, but the way they're doing the bracket is they're going to have the ninth place, they're going to do quarterfinals to semifinals to finals, right? And then the top two teams get to stay in LPL. And it's going, or get promoted to LPL if
Yeah.
it's an LSPL team. So they're going to do ninth place LPL against sixth place LSP. And then they're going to do, and then the next down the line is going to be 11th place LPL against fourth place LSPL. Okay. Anyway, you can kind of picture this down the line. So the point is that if you want proper seeding, like you want to have the ninth place LPL spot, so that you don't have to face like the third place LSPL team.
Mhm.
Because I think after top 3, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, it's like not that great. It's kind of how I feel. It's like the competition isn't as steep. But you think KX Happy could be Oh My Dream, so, and I would put Oh My Dream as like kind of high up there, so.
It's weird to say because of course the way the groups were handled, like it was a very OGN groups initially, of course, and how they got into
Right.
the playoffs.
Mhm.
Some of the teams that got kicked out were really competitive teams. Like for instance, Energy Pacemakers Academy. I thought were a really solid team. I was like really hyped up for them in that sense, and they played pretty well up until, of course, the last set against like what is it, KX Happy, and they got kicked out. So you have a weird set. You have a weird set of teams in which like, oh yeah, Energy Pacemakers Academy didn't come in, but Legend Dragons did, and any team that goes up against Legend Dragons will have an easy set in that sense. In that case, so it's awkward. But after, I think Chuggu is fine. Like I think they're great. ADG, Oh My Dream, Vici Potential. There are a solid 5 teams I think can have competitive games. in
So
my
you
opinion.
really want the 6th place is what you're telling me. You don't want the...
Yeah.
So you really want that 9th place, which is increasingly relevant because as we go in, Starhorn Royal Club is currently in 9th place, but now I think WE is actually only like 2 points below them at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think WE can make it to playoffs, but they can overtake Starhorn Royal Club for 9th place probably. Especially considering I think WE face easier opponents than Starhorn Royal Club. Starhorn Royal Club has to face Snake, Vici Gaming, and Invictus Gaming. They also face Energy Pacemakers, so you really want to keep that 9th place if you're Starhorn Royal Club right now.
Yeah, and it's really important. I think this this tournament's gonna be a little more telling in that sense, because of course, like these teams, like people forget, like these teams didn't have a chance to qualify initially at all into the LPL, and so when people see the LSPL, they're like, oh, the scene, it's like it's much lower than the LPL. It's pretty bad. That's reasonable to say for a good part, but it's actually really competitive, and in fact, a lot of teams, or at least not a lot of teams, like a good portion of the teams, like a good handful, are better than the bottom LPL teams. Like GAMT is pretty good right now, but I think they would have a tough set against some of the LSPL teams, especially Energy Pacemakers. I'm sorry, like I don't know.
You're washing your hands from
Come
them.
on, Garen, man.
They're done.
They have to face the third place LSPL team. They're out. No.
Yeah, I actually don't know how this is gonna turn out. I think they're gonna like start changing their rosters for that. I don't know the rules for that.
I don't think they can. Like, I don't think, because remember you couldn't play. They couldn't play any of the new Korean players for the promotion tournament last split.
Yeah.
So they aren't allowed to play new players until the end of the promotion.
Okay, that's fair.
As far as I can tell. So they have to keep at least whoever's on their roster or in their club already.
That's a very
So they could
stage.
possibly put in like some EPA players or something.
See, if they put in like EPA bottom lane, I think that would be our. That'd be significant.
Wow, the Kane hate.
Like,
I actually think like EPA's like bottom lane is really good, or at least just 2x their support. Their support player is a really solid player, I think.
I don't think Hugh is that bad. I mean, he's at
He's
least
not.
better than Deep Dream.
He is. He is.
Deep Dream?
Sync Dream, I guess.
Hmm.
Gamtee's support. He used to be Deep Dream. Now he's Sync Dream.
Just set up the name.
That very subtle name change right there. So, I think that now that bracket has come out, the teams have probably already known, but that obviously is some incentive, gives us an idea of how things are. We can kind of think about how things are going to shape out going forward as LPL winds down and as the LSPL playoffs finish. So, those are your ramifications. Also, this weekend, no LPL, Demacia Cup. Should be a lot of fun, but I feel like China Talk has already taken over the show quite enough, so maybe we should talk a little bit more about LCS before we close out.
Let's do it.
Oh boy, my favorite.
No, I picked two best of ones that I thought, one from each European LCS and from the North American LCS that I thought people would probably be most interested in. The first one was Elements winning out against H2K in the European LCS, which I thought was fairly interesting. And then, of course, everyone wants to talk about TSM versus CLG Redux, right? Or I guess some people would rather talk about TSM versus Gravity, but we can just talk generally about TSM.
Sure.
So first, let's get Elements versus H2K out of the way. I think very few people predicted this, given that before this everyone was saying H2K is the best team in Europe, and I think people are still saying H2K is the best team in Europe, but Elements had like a really good game against them. The picks that they used, though, were Jinx and Karthus. So, thoughts on Jinx and Karthus compositions? Obviously, you think Elements, you think that style of late game.
Are you alive?
That was the question. Thoughts on Jinx and Karthus?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
That's a very.
that was the
that's a very
question.
nice-
Okay, I thought you
I
got
was like,
cut
whoa.
off.
I was like,
Okay, I guess I should be more specific. Like, how do we feel about Jinx in the meta right now? She's been seeing a lot more play. We're seeing a lot more auto attack based AD carries in response to some of these tank metas, for obvious reasons. Karthus has been propping up a lot more. Before this match, a certain showcaster, who I will not name because he gets enough abuse already, said, "As you can
That's already
see."
naming him. That's already naming him.
As-
You basically named him.
Basically,
Put it that
there are
way.
showcasters who get abused besides him.
Alright.
He said that and this isn't necessarily like saying negative things about him. I'm just saying he made the statement, so it's an easy straw man to put up here and provoke discussion. He said that you can't win by stalling out for late game anymore. You have to win by going ham. Like, look at these previous 2 games, and of course I think that was the day that Fnatic played Unicorns of Love, which we won't talk about because that game was horrible. But
Fun though.
yeah, it was fun. It was really fun to watch. So, thoughts on that comment? Are we going to see a lot more of these late game hyperscaling compositions come out? Are we going to see more Jinx? Is Karthus having a resurgence? These kind of thoughts.
I think
Yeah,
Jinx and Karthus being strong in the meta right now, like, yeah, they're really good late game, so it's a really good benefit. Like, it's really good, like, like, rocket in the pocket, ace in the pocket kind of thing. But the thing is that, like, just because they're late game doesn't mean they're not useful in the mid game and early game. They're pretty strong. Like, they have a lot of, like, global influence, like, Jinx ult, especially Karthus ult, you can, like, coordinate your tower dives. And Karthus just makes sense to me to come back into the meta right now because we're seeing a lot of like AoE oriented mid laners with, especially with like assassin nerfs, and I mean LeBlanc's getting nerfed again in 5.6, I think. I didn't read all of it yet. So because all these like assassin junglers, no, J4 and Rexel will still be good, but like with the more resurgence of our like tank junglers or passive mid laners, Karthus is king in that kind of meta because he's safe. I mean, like, I think he's a relatively safe mid laner to begin with, unless you just don't ward your jungles properly, you don't clear wards properly. But, like, as long as you do like the basics, like 101, how to play with the Karthus on your team, I think he's gonna scale pretty well. So it just makes sense for him to come back, especially. I mean, if it's not only that, but like if you have tank junglers coming back into the meta, then you're gonna want a tower dive, right? And who's good for tower diving? Karthus, because he just farms mid lane or Raptors or Race or whatever it's called now, while you're tower diving. So it just makes sense. And Jinx is just, I think, is really good. I think she's always been really good because she gets the resets, and then you can like. I know we're gonna talk about that later during the TSM CLG thing, but like they could have won off the Jinx resets at a Dragonflight, but you know it didn't work out that way. But still, so I think Jinx is really good. I think Jinx has always been really good. And Karthus is coming back to the meta because chain junglers, you know, just all the conditions are just kind of lining up for Karthus to come back.
Yeah, and it's here's the thing about that is that they're both great individually for the meta, but they also work extremely well together in the sense that they, of course, yeah, they work for Jinx's resets, but at the same time, like if someone's at a low health target, you Karthus ulti them and you Jinx rocket them and they're dead, and that already sparks the passive and you keep on going. It's actually just like, it's amazing to watch it being played from a very like a practiced team in that composition. I don't even think that, like, honestly, I don't even think that Elements played it to its fullest extent, but I think that they definitely showed its strength in that set.
They had a really good idea of what the comp does, and that's good. That's what you want. You pick a comp. You don't just be like, you know, like Froggen's really good at farming. He's always been good at Karthus, and Reckless is good at Jinx. But no, like they understood the strengths of Jinx and Karthus put together, and they used that to a pretty good extent.
So yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
It was good.
So it's not a resurgence of the stall out farming meta, or is it just that these champions are scale really well throughout the entire game?
I think it's that. I think it's just kind of not lucky or coincidental, but like they work with the meta. They work with, if the game does go long, they're still relevant. You know, it's not like you're picking something like you have to win early game or you're gonna lose early, like late game. It works
And
both mid and late.
it's also pretty impossible to say that a team that seeks to stall out a game will fail, because in this meta it's actually very hard to stop a team from stalling out, especially if like all they need is great ward coverage and at the same time a wave clear mage. That's all they need at this point because of how strong the towers are, and there's a lot of it just comes down to that point. Because now, like for instance, you see teams like Snake or
I
I'm just
mean,
even using,
IG before a couple weeks ago was like this too.
yeah, they find a mage that wave clears, and you can never find a way to break that tower if they can maneuver around the map well enough. So it's like hyperscale, like going to that late game is extreme. That's why like Juggernaut is so like is so nice now. It's so hard to be able to challenge it. That's why teams are. It's so difficult to take a game off of them if they're on Juggernaut. It's like, well, we can try and fast push. Oh wait, they're always wave clearing turrets. Like it's very hard to be able to like. It's very hard to bust turrets if they're always on top of that, because that's the only game that you're predictable at that point. That's what you want to do. That's your aim.
Right.
So, I don't. It's like a team that looks to stall out a game. If they're good enough, they will stall out a game. Yeah.
Or you can give your Maokai blue buff and 2 Doran's rings really early, and they can hold the towers for you. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I think it's not super hard to stall. You still have to be fairly coordinated to stall out games, so if you're not choosing to stall out games, I think it will naturally stall out for you, is the one caveat I would add to that. Okay, so, TSM. First day, they lose to Gravity, and then Gravity got made. Everyone was excited.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Next day, they beat CLG. Let's just call out something called the power rankings for LL Esports. I'm not going to be mean or anything. I'm just going to point out that that after TSM won IM Katowice, okay, we can move them up. That's great. CLG is suddenly on the list, right? And not only are they on the list, but they're suddenly like a top 10 team. How do we feel about that in the wake of the TSM versus CLG games? Like, how do we feel about CLG as a team or as a contender in the world stage?
I don't think they're a top 10 team.
God, here's the difficulty.
Are they a top
with that.
20 team? Where do you put them, Steven?
It's hard to say because I have a lot of problems with CLG and the way they do their pick bans, especially. Like, CLG is really good in the early game. Like, they know how to maneuver around the map. They know how to act with soul pushes. They know what to do with, like, big waves. And that's good. Like, you want that kind of strategy on a team. But I've never personally been impressed by their team fighting as a whole. And if you're talking about putting on a team like CLG or any team in the top 10, I feel like you have to consider what it's like to go against international teams. And international teams, for the most part, are pretty good at team fighting. See Korea, see China, right? And then if you're putting them in the top 10, you have to put them above China, like some of the top Chinese and Korean teams. But CLG, especially like in the TSM game, they didn't have a teamfight presence. Because I personally don't think CLG is good at teamfighting unless you put Aphromoo on a playmaking champion. But they put him on Janna, so he can provide that kind of presence. And no one else, no one else in CLG can dictate that flow of like a teamfight in CLG's favor other than Aphromoo. But they put him on Janna. And I think that's kind of ridiculous when you have like champions like Ahri and Kennen on your team that they can't. The Zion and Link aren't able to utilize that kind of like power. So, do I think they're a top 10 team? Hell no. Do I think they're a top 20 team? Maybe if they just keep Aphromoo and playmaking champions. But it's hard at that point.
Yeah. Here's the difficulty, because it comes down to I think CLG is a better team than TSM when it comes to early game map movement, wave control, a whole like I think that's really strong on them, and I think they're a lot more flexible when it comes to their compositions. Only problem is the team, as Steven said, they can't team fight. They can't team fight. That's like, it's people will think I'm over exaggerating, but you see the final team fight in that really decided the game for CLG, and it's absolute shit. Like, you see the Flash, they only get Sejuani, and like the Flash cannon ulti from Zion, they only get Sejuani and Thresh, and you're like, oh, well, that's bad. Well, where's their DPS? Like, he didn't even do any damage. Well, let's
He just had allies with no damage.
Yeah, and you look at Doublelift, is like, is he providing any DPS? No, he's finishing off the tower during that engage, and you're like, okay, where's the communication on that? It's bad. And this isn't the first bad team fight we've seen. This is not, you can't just write it off as saying, oh, it only happened once. No, it happens every game. To the point in which they rely on their map movements to really get them through these games, because they're a really smart team at times. Like, they're a really smart team most of the time. I think you can really say that their team is probably the best in the, one of that. Oh god, I want to say they're world class in the sense that their map movement is great, but they are the shittiest team fighting team. Like, it's not good. And team fighting is so damn important. It really is. It is one of the most important parts of League of Legends. If you can't team fight, then
especially because, like, I'm sorry, not to interrupt you.
You go on.
Just saying, like, you can look at both games with CLG and TSM. In both games this season, CLG heavily outmaneuvers TSM. Like, 10 out of 10, like, you look at both those games, you look at only the early game, CLG is a better team.
Yeah.
But then, like, the moment they team fight, everything falls apart.
Yeah.
And it's not even just the Ken and Flash part. The dragon fight, okay, so when Zed's leaving the river and he dodges the Jinx ult and the RA charm, had he gotten hit by any one of those two, Doublelift would have gotten resets on Jinx and probably would have killed all of TSM, and they probably could have won that game, right? But at the same time, that team fight started off so sloppily. Like, first of all, Rylai's Kennen Rush, there's no damage. There's no damage. There's no damage. Like, who cares if you stun them? You're gonna take off like 25% of HP off of them, and then like do nothing, and then maybe get blown up or get whatever CC'd, whatever you want to call it. There's no damage.
Yeah.
And then not only that, he flash ulted and like hit one person. He hit like Wild Turtle, who Valkyrie'd out. So you absolutely became 100% useless in that team fight, especially when CLG was split between the upper river and the bottom river. At the same time, Xmithie just gets caught up by Zed, dies to him. There's just nothing coming up from CLG. These team fights are pretty atrocious, and Aphromoo can't do anything because he's on Janna.
I think the team will get better though. It's just it's a question of when.
Will
and
they?
Honestly, yeah, that's just
It is a
so
question.
No,
But the
what
other
makes
thing
you
that-
think that they will get better though? This is the
I mean,
question.
they're taking it seriously from what I've heard, but you always hear those things. That's always been something that they've talked about, and they're
Just wondering
definitely...
if you're seeing like signs in their gameplay of their team fights slowly improving, or if it's just always just been this nothing.
It's
Oh
the
yeah, that's true.
communication.
Yeah.
I
And so,
mean,
like, it's
Zion
all-
will engage without giving his team enough notice, and you'll see that in both games.
I mean, we don't even know that. That's the thing. We need to look
That's
into
true.
the calls.
That's true. I don't know about the comms necessarily, but that's what it looks like in the first game against TSM. He'll like flash jump Gnar ult like 4 people into a wall. No one's ready. Like Link was on the center of the game. His E was on cooldown. He couldn't do anything to get in.
No, he got in. He just got bursted immediately, and that's
No. I mean the last time that it happened 2 different team fights.
yeah.
The second
that's
time
true.
it happened.
Yeah.
The second time it happened.
They had 2 terrible team fights.
Yes, pretty much. And
Yeah.
like I don't know if it's a calm thing or if people just aren't listening, but for whatever it is, the engages are happening and the follow-up isn't, and that's just pretty
Yeah.
inexcusable this far into LCS, right?
We'll see where this all goes with them. I do want to say that they like to even like bolster the point that they're a really solid early game team, and talk about how TSM is honestly not like is pretty overblown in this sense. I think TSM is they're a really adaptable team. I'm going to give them that. They adapt to what the enemy is doing really well. Like they're on the fly. They're really good. They're clutch. Their team fighting in NA is strong,
Mhm.
but I don't know how that relates to other regions. We'll have to see in MSI. But one of the massive mistakes that they make is it's a culture of screwing over Dyrus. It's just very nice. But one of the like not planned screwing over Dyrus, something they didn't plan for is when they killed the top lane tower, but didn't completely
Oh,
push it in.
yeah.
Like they didn't completely push it in, so Zion just like had this
Free farm.
ridiculous freeze. He froze up the top lane. You're like, oh, okay.
I think he froze
Well,
it for about 6 minutes.
He froze it for a while. Yeah, that's true. And so you're like, oh Jesus, well Darius is behind again. Like, oof, surprise, surprise, he's behind. It's not his fault, but like, And of course, unfortunately for them, for CLG, like the gold that he was like farming up for was the Rylai's gold.
Rylai's.
That was not really nice. So, it's like that's just how I
Imagine if
feel.
he went
about
like Zhonya's first with that kind of lead.
it. Zonya's even Abyssal, like he could have won a
I
billion
think
ways.
this would have been good.
Like CLG and TSM, it really speaks to NA as a whole. I want to see where this region goes and how they strengthen, but I'm not sure where they are right now. I don't. That goes back to the LoL Esports power rankings. I don't think they're top 10,
Mhm.
and then, but then that goes to me honestly. Like my opinion of teams. Like if you had like LoL Raz power ranking or something, you'd probably just see some random LSPL team up there. You're like, oh god, what's happening? And that's because I rate them higher than than Team Impulse. Like God, if Team Impulse or something was in LSPL, they're like, Jesus, would they even make it to playoffs? Maybe. But like that comes
And
I don't
Team
know,
Impulse is a team that I think has shown signs of improvement.
They have
I feel like CLG has been played very similarly almost since week 1.
yeah.
Um,
Team Impulse will-
They play the same.
But it sounds like you guys are saying that CLG and TSM are pretty close overall. Is that fair? Do you think they should be rated closely?
That's I think it's hard to
Yeah.
say.
I'm gonna say yeah, because they both have different weaknesses and strengths,
That's
but in
true.
the end of the day, like they clash and it's always close, but at the same time,
Like
it's for different reasons.
Do you think maybe CLG just has like TSM's number in some way? Like if you put these teams both on the international stage, because it sounds like you're saying team fighting is so important, CLG would just get clobbered. So taking them out of the context of just facing each other, and you drop them into this pool of TSM is facing a bunch of Chinese and Korean teams. CLG is facing a bunch of Chinese and Korean teams.
Okay, so if you were to
Who
put
wins
them on
most
the
games?
world stage, like right now, CLG will outmaneuver early, but the moment they get into a team fight, they'll lose against like strong team fighting teams. TSM might never get the chance to team fight properly against a strong team if their early game stays as weak as it is.
How I feel about this, I think that it's because style means everything. Like
Style, exactly,
matters.
it's a style thing.
Yeah. Style matters. So if you put like TSM against a Korean